A tombstone chiseled into the code of a machine. That is all I need to mark my existence.
Here we go. We are transitioning. Music's quieting down. We are switching the scene. And now we're going to make sure everybody can hear your lovely voices again. And can everybody get an interview today? Give me a woo woo.
Woo woo.
All
woo,
right.
woo.
And can my co-host give me a woo woo? Oh.
Woo woo.
I mean, you already gave me a woo woo.
It was a preemptive.
We're not
woo-woo.
interviewing you today, Roz. That is like our joke about like the backup episode. If ever like we're about to interview somebody and they get like I was joking about before we aired, got hit by a bus. I would just be like, okay, we're gonna interview you then, Roz. But yeah, I'm just gonna spotlight myself real quick and do our little intro for the episode. Make sure that I'm not muted. It looks like we are good to go. But hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Laughing Into the Void, episode 22. Whoa, we're old. If episodes were years, we could drink. But I'm your host, Tom. Co-hosting with me tonight, as always, is the lovely Rosalind Paris.
Hi.
Thank you. You can watch our previous broadcasts on the District Comedy YouTube and Facebook channels, or listen to them on most podcast platforms, now including Pandora. Ooh, I feel so special. They accepted us. But if you enjoy the stream, please consider making a donation of any size, or following us on social media using the links in the description. Special bonus plug for our first ever District Comedy Showcase, Fancy Mike. Tickets are $10, but only $5 for the first 15 tickets. So I'm telling you so that you can prepare and get that special discount. Please, everything's fine. I'm fine. Just please buy a ticket. Again, that's April 16th, this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And the tickets link can also be found in the description. Here with us today, we have the hilarious Emily Paige. Emily Paige is a Jersey-based comedian who has studied with the American Comedy Institute based out of New York City. Emily's relatable content focuses on navigating the world as a single mom and all the insanity that comes with that. She has studied sketch writing with UCB, which I'm really excited to talk about, and performs on a virtual improv-based show called Wingin' It. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to unspotlight myself and get everything looking normal again. And we're just going to jump right into it.
Awesome.
Yay! Everybody's here. Everybody's alive, including me.
For now.
For now. No, as we were just talking about before we got the stream shotted, if I seem a little out of it, it is because I am feeling the effects of the second shot of the vaccine. Woo! Great problem to have. But so the first question that we ask, and the last question that we ask, but we're not there yet. The first question that we ask every comedian, and it kind of helps us kind of boil you down into a nutshell. But how would you describe your sense of humor to someone who has never seen you perform?
Oh my goodness. I would say it's like sassy, snarky, sarcastic. Maybe. Yeah, it's like playful. I do a lot of stuff that's reality based. Actually, most of it's just based on my life. And obviously you have to give a comedic spin to it, but yeah, just like fun. Nothing, I don't know. Yeah, nothing sassy. I don't know.
No, that's totally fine. I find that
Is
a
that
lot
good?
of comedians do sometimes feel like a little self-conscious trying to like describe themselves. I have also found, and if you want to clarify whether or not this is the case for you, I find that, especially for me personally, that like the type of comedy that I do is not necessarily the type of comedy that I like,
Yes.
but I have found that like it is my niche. Do you find that that's the case for you?
Yeah, because it's funny when you first asked me that question, I was like, oh, is he gonna ask me what kind of comedy like I like? And I was gonna be like, witty, dry, dark, like and I was like, I'm not very dark. But yeah, I find the same thing. I feel like I enjoy all different types of comedy, but I would feel like if I was trying to go out and do a specific type of comedy that didn't come natural to me, it just wouldn't be funny. I can appreciate it without it being my style.
Yeah, exactly. Like and obviously because I heard about your UCB background, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. But me and Roz have a little bit of an improv background ourselves, and I find, especially for me, I appreciate and I actually like value like really absurdist humor a lot, and also Roz's cat who's attacking me. That's like also a running joke on the stream, is that
Yeah, I
come
have
out and attack her. Yeah.
One of my cats likes to attack me when I'm on Zoom sometimes.
That's
so if that
okay.
happens, just ignore the bloodshed.
You'll see one of mine show up at some point, I'm sure.
I'm very excited.
But yeah, no, I definitely find that like as far as the humor that I like and that absurdist like stuff, is not necessarily the stuff I'm best at executing. So sometimes that doesn't really like fit into the act, but I do.
You actually, Tom, sorry to interrupt you as always.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, Tom recently told me that Jim Carrey was a huge influence on his comedy.
Oh yeah.
And that surprised me to no end. Like, I can't imagine you talking out of your asshole set or on a skit, like, and it's so interesting because there are like similarities to it. Like your comedy, I think, Tom, is like physical at times, but yeah, that really blew my mind.
Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna say, since you reminded me of that, is that like, yeah, the Jim Carrey influence is more like an influence on my general performance style, because a little known fact about me is that for like the last 5 years I've also been working professionally with like a theater company in Northern Virginia, and it's a physical theater where like they're known for doing wordless Shakespeare. So that's definitely where some mime comes in, is all the
That's
Jim
so
Carrey
cool.
influence. It's a weird niche, to
It's
be honest.
cool though.
But yeah, it's like, how do you get kids paying attention and laughing when you're not talking at all? But nonetheless, getting back to you, so it's interesting that you kind of identify yourself, maybe like not necessarily the type of humor that you like, but you said sassy. And I also notice, just kind of like personally, because I follow you on social media,
Oh, thank
that you
you.
also have a sense of humor that translates really well to Twitter, which at least I have noticed tends to be indicative of a comedian who is very much like strong in the writing side of the
Well, thank
spectrum when it
you.
comes to comedy. Well, yeah, I mean, you have a
I
certain number of
appreciate it.
characters you have to use, and it's like, how do I get
Yeah.
those laughs with like, what is it, 250 characters?
Yeah, I have always, like, I've been writing for years, even before I was doing comedy, and my writing's always been short and concise. That's just how I write. If you asked me to write a novel, I would be like, no. But if I no, can't do that. But I can write like I used to do poetry, a lot of poetry, and to me, like coming up with things, like being able to say what I wanted to say in a certain amount of words or a short line, just came easy. So I think that's why I really took to Twitter, and I really enjoyed doing tweets. And now sometimes tweets can translate over to stand-up jokes, but not always.
Right, yeah.
Not all the time. Sometimes they do not work. But it's almost like a punchline. So it's really cool to kind of like put stuff out on Twitter and see if it takes off, because
Yeah.
I'll find like, okay, maybe that'll be a good punch for a joke, or at least, okay, there's a good premise that people find entertaining. But it's like a lot of fun. It's like a puzzle trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that was actually gonna be kind of related to my next question, because again, little known fact about me, if you're not familiar, I have a background in librarianship. I love data. I love mixing my data with my comedy. Do you find that like that will be a big influence on the material that gets into your act, is like it has to get a certain number of like likes or retweets or replies on Twitter? Or is it still just kind of like, I like this joke and it's going in?
It's yeah, a little bit. It's funny. I usually won't post my stand-up material on Twitter. So most of my set is never like anywhere on Twitter. Only recently have I started, if I have like an idea, posting it up there and seeing like, okay, this is a concept people think is funny. What can I do off of that? But yeah, I try to keep them separate. Just because I feel like the less you put out on, because we all know how Twitter is. So Twitter sometimes it's not that the tweet isn't funny, it's the algorithm. So I don't try to hold too much at stake with that. And sometimes I'll tweet something and I'll be like, well, I think it's funny. And I'll get like 7 likes. I'm like, well, I'll tweet the dumbest thing. It'll be like 100 and something. And I'm like, that's not even funny. But okay, people.
That's good to hear. I didn't think that's the direction you were gonna go with it. Do you ever find that like, what's a good way to phrase this? But like, are you ever worried that like you will like be giving away like part of your set maybe for free a bit also, if you like put it out as a tweet? Is that ever a concern, or is that not really something?
Well, kind of, and not that like for free, like not monetary reasons why, but like I feel like if I put it out on Twitter, I'm kind of taking it out of context. And I feel like even though I'm not like, my jokes are very like short and like quick. Like that's how my jokes are. So they're not necessarily like, I'm not like really a storyteller. I get really jealous of comedians that can tell stories. I'm working on that skill. Mine are very much just like punch, 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 which is great. It's just a different style. But my jokes, even though they're short, do work together, you know? So it's like, I feel like if I was to take one out of context, I think the majority of the time it would fall flat. Like, I think it needs those other jokes surrounding it. So I wouldn't want people to get the wrong idea about the joke, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. I think context is definitely key too.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear that you keep that in mind. Because that's also like away from where I would necessarily think you'd be coming from, just because again, UCB background, me and Roz are from improv, and I find that is definitely like a skill that lends itself to the delivery side of stand-up, to the writing side of stand-up, because it's really easy to like improvise a lot of shit and then just keep the good stuff. And then
throw the rest of the trash.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of also, I believe it's a component of like UCB writing philosophy, as well as like Second City, which is like we're gonna improvise a ton, and then we're gonna keep the good stuff and kind of move on from there. So it's kind of interesting that your process kind of jumps right to the succinct, kind of I guess more finished like one-liners.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up like with UCB. I've only taken a couple classes, and I actually have taken all my UCB classes because I live in New Jersey, like you said, online during the pandemic. So so I'm excited to take more. But I remember my first sketch class. Sketch writing for me at first was like, I was like, this is not like writing stand-up. This is completely different. And I was like, okay. But I love it. I absolutely love it. You just have to kind of like switch your mindset. You're like, this is not like, I'm not doing this in front of this on a stage in front of people. I'm writing this for other people to perform on stage. And she was my teacher, Carrie McGuire. She's amazing. Was like, no idea is bad. They're like babies. You don't kill the baby just because you don't use the idea in the sketch. Like, you keep it on the side. So I keep that in mind when I'm doing stand-up jokes too. Like, I'm working on some new material now, and I was working with one of my writing coaches, and she's like, I don't think this one is here. I'm like, all right, we're gonna put that one to the side for now. We're not gonna kill it. It's just gonna go over here for a
minute. Let it soak. Let it marinate.
Let it simmer. Yeah.
And then maybe later it'll be ready to cook.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So do you want to speak a little bit kind of to the experience of like doing the stuff with UCB, but also kind of like how, at least for sketch comedy, it seems, what that experience was like, as far as if there were any additional challenges translating it to like the digital forum, because that's one of the very popular topics on this show, which I'm sorry for our audience who's sick of hearing us talk about it, but also it's sketch, which is like one that we haven't done yet. But
but it's true, everything's so different now, and like everything's digital. Like everything in my life I feel like is on Zoom or Google Meet nowadays. But I think with sketch it's different than improv. Like, I actually debated taking an improv class, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do improv for the first time ever on Zoom. Like, I feel like I don't want to do that. But I was like, I'm always more of like, I've always been more of, I like the writing aspect more than like necessarily the performing aspect, except with stand-up. I love both, but I've always been more of the, I want to be behind the camera kind of person. Like, I did like film editing and stuff in high school. I just always loved being behind the camera. So I was like, oh, I'll just sketch. Like, that's, that's what I'll do. I'll write. And I think because it's a writing based course, it wasn't too bad to be virtual. And I actually think there was a lot of benefits because I was in class with people all over the country. So it was really cool to meet people I normally wouldn't meet. And like, I'm still connected. We talk and stuff. But I mean, obviously you have the same delays, the tech glitches, things like that happen. But it was really cool because our teacher would still have us meet in groups. So I mean, we're normally people have all these different schedules going on, and this one couldn't meet that time, because it's digital. Even if you have something going on, it's so easy to just like hop on your phone and FaceTime a couple of people and be able to work together that way.
Yeah.
I don't, it's tough because I've never taken a course like this in person, but I didn't think that there were that many detriments to doing it online. I hope that UCB keeps offering them even after the pandemic. I think it'd be awesome if they continue to offer some classes online. I think people will still start showing up.
Yeah,
I think it kind of opens them up. I mean, one thing that we talk about on the show all the time also is access,
Yeah.
Like, not everyone can travel to New York City or Chicago or LA to take classes in person. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if like the pandemic kind of kickstarts that model for them.
Yeah, because I know the classes I'm taking with UCB are out of LA. So it's like, I would never be able to go to LA to take a sketch comedy class. Like, I mean, I would love to do that, but like, it's not really on my journey right now.
Now you can, you just have to like show up 3 hours earlier than you would have had to otherwise.
I'll be like, let me get my plane. I'll be right there.
Yeah.
Well, actually, last week we were floating the idea of a comedy plane with Brooke Barzell. So,
oh my God, we were.
We can maybe barter that out to LA. It'd be great.
Yeah. Everybody gets on the comedy jet. Your ticket's paid for in laughs. No, it's not. It's paid for in money and gas. But no, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I also think that like, again, something we may have touched on the show before. I actually don't know if we have, but I've also been seeing this trend with like businesses overall as they've kind of like started to reopen across the country, that like they are kind of navigating and negotiating this need that they've seen that they've been able to address by like going to these digital forums, as far as like we talked about with access, being able to talk to people from like different parts of the country, not having to drive like from Jersey into New York to take a class or whatever. But like their challenge has kind of been, how do we kind of build ourselves back up to like what we were doing before with the in-person classes and still like offer these virtual things. Like this is a new service that we have rolled out. How do we like get back to normal life while we're like still offering that virtually? Because I find that people do not like it when whatever the reason, you're like, no, we're gonna offer stuff online, and then they're like, oh, things are open again, goodbye. Like people don't like that.
Well, I don't think it should go anywhere. Even like comedy, I know, like, I mean, so I'm a rare case that I started doing comedy during the pandemic.
Okay.
So I kind of thank the well, I'm not gonna say that, but I had access to things that it gave me an opportunity to actually go out and do things that I normally would have been able to do, but it would have been trickier, or I wouldn't have been able to do it just quite yet. So like even taking classes with the American Comedy Institute, that's based in New York City, not terribly far from me, about an hour and a half, hour and change. But being a single mom and working a full-time job, it's like then to be like, hey, mom and dad, I know you watch my daughter while I'm at work, but now I'm gonna get on a train and go to New York. Like, like not too much. So it gave me the opportunity to really take these classes and these courses I really wanted to and really dive in. And even like doing Zoom shows and open mics, like I can bounce around and do almost 4 or 5 shows a week. Not
or
so
night
much
for some people.
at night, like when she's sleeping, or so
during mommy's swearing time.
Yeah, during the nap time I can write some jokes. So
All right, so kind of digging more then into like your personal background, do you want to tell us a little bit about like maybe how your upbringing has had an impact on your comedy style? How so? A little bit about like where you're coming from as you're like jumping into the comedy scene. Yeah, we'll just like wiggle our way into it.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
those
so-
listening on the podcast, we are wiggling.
We're wiggling our way into comedy.
We also got to see Emily's cat for a second. And
Yeah, sorry, that was Tito. And
Tito.
If you ever watch my shows, he's always on camera. He's like my number one heckler. My other cat doesn't bother me, just this guy. Okay, so how to get into comedy? Yeah, and voice, and yeah, I was distracted by my cat too, but I think I got the gist of the question. So,
like, if there's anything about like your background or your upbringing that's like we've had a couple people where it's like, I grew up in the South, so I love talking about how I was in a cult, or like stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I'm a Jersey girl, born and raised. I'm an only child. It's me, my mom, my dad. My dad is just big on roasting me my entire life. I grew up being roasted by my father, which is fine, because it gave me a really strong backbone to like deal with it. So we were always just very goofy. Like the three of us were very goofy, very funny, just like joking around all the time. And my dad's from a big like Irish Scottish family, so it's a lot of personality and a lot of, again, like you either can handle it or you can't. So I kind of grew up in that atmosphere. And like I said, I've always been a writer. I've always loved comedy. I'm an English teacher. That's what I do like during the day. And but I always wanted to go into comedy. Always wanted to go into comedy. And I used to even start off the year joking with my students and saying, well, I wanted to be a stand-up comic, and this is as close as I could get, which was kind of true. And basically what ended up happening about a year before the pandemic hit is I had my daughter, and then I got divorced, and then I turned 30, and then the world shut down. And I was like, well, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. Yeah. And it was like taking all my life stories and like things that had happened to me, and to all my writing, everything I'd been working on, and just like finding an outlet for it. And it just kind of like all came together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do find that like, yeah, no, you're good, Roz. I was just saying, it's like, yeah, I feel like it is like a really good outlet for that, especially like after you've already processed it. Because unfortunately, I've also witnessed the comedians who are like, I haven't completely come to terms with this situation, and it's too soon for me to be joking about it, but also I can't afford therapy, so here's an open mic. I
actually, funny enough, started going to therapy and started doing stand-up the same month.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right?
That's good. You have like that outlet and then this outlet. Yeah.
Yes.
That's very healthy.
They both benefit each other very nicely.
Also, therapists like weirdly love finding out that one of their clients is a comedian. Like, I don't know.
Loves it.
I don't know why, but like of the 3 therapists I've been to, they're always like, oh, you're a comedian, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, we get a lot of you guys. It's really interesting to see the way you turn your pain into laughter. You know, and like, and I'm just like, yeah, I know. Can we go back to talking about why I hate everything?
Tell
Do
me
you know who else
first.
loved finding out I was a comedian? Do you ever hear of Stitch Fix? Like those people.
Yeah.
So I told my Stitch Fix stylist I was a comedian. She's like, oh my God, tell me when you have shows. She's like, send me all these cool. I'm like, I need clothes to wear for stand-up on Zoom.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Hashtag Stitch Fix, everybody. Give them a try if you're a comedian. No, that's so cool though.
We're advertising tonight.
Yeah, no, it's like that is like a weird profession. Both of those. That's like, ooh, weirdly excited.
Yes.
That you're a comedian, which is great. In case you don't get that from, I don't know, your family. But yeah, that's cool. So again, we kind of talked about the sketch a little bit, but for stand up, other than like the sketch and the Twitter, do you like have a process that you think of when you're going, like, if somebody comes up to you is like, we've seen your stuff, we love your work, we gotta get you to do like 10 minutes of clean stuff at this library church. Like, when you're presented with that sort of situation or anything where you have to like write material maybe of like longer than that you
Mhm.
would just like be able to throw at an open mic real quick beforehand. Is there any like kind of writing process you go through for vetting your
Yeah.
own jokes, or do you just have kind of an innate voice for what you think will be funny when you do it on the stage?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy that it was a 65-year-old chain-smoking woman who asked me if I had, because obviously I want to work for her. Yeah, there's totally a process. I mean,
That's actually Tom's inner beast is a 65-year-old chain smoker.
That's my conscience speaking.
I love it.
She's not doing so hot. But yeah.
I have a voice too. Mine's like a Jewish, Jewish American princess from New Jersey. That's what she sounds like. No, so yeah, process. My writing process in the summer would be I would go for a walk every day and I would bring my phone with me and I wouldn't listen to anything, but anytime an idea popped in my head, I would write it down. So now I have like this long page of notes in my phone that I have not, like I look through it, but it's like scary to look through it because sometimes I'm like, I don't know what this means. It just says unfortunately, and I don't know unfortunately what that means. But yeah, so most of my material is clean. Like I can work clean very easily because of my day job.
Oh,
And because I try to make it as family friendly, and I also know that working clean is very good if you eventually want to work for network television or to like that. So dreaming big here,
yeah.
but it also opens me for opportunities where it's say like the 65-year-old chain smoking church woman wanting to do an event, right? So I don't have to like really worry about changing my material. But usually like when I'm actually writing, things will go from my phone to a notebook to a computer. Like I still love physically writing things down. I'm like old school like that. But I do type my sets up and everything. He's back on the computer.
Yeah.
Oh.
I definitely find that too. Like I just love, and it helps with my memory too, because my memory is also
Yes.
shite. But
Yes.
having like a little notebook, whether it says district comedy or if it's like a
Nice.
moleskin notebook.
Good plug.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's not actually a plug, because I think we got rid of the merch store.
Oh, no!
You can no longer
that's
have
a
them.
district comedy exclusive. You had to get it while it was hot. But don't
Limited
worry.
edition.
Come to Fancy Mike instead. But yeah, it's like that negotiating behavior, and it kind of bleeds into another question I wanted to ask, which is like, do you find that for the delivery side of it, do you do a lot of stuff with like personas? Is that something that you're kind of like a fan of in comedy, or is that something that like, I don't know, maybe you like it, but again, like not for you?
No, I love it. So it's actually funny. Right before I came on your podcast, I actually had one of my comedy classes that I'll take this workshop. It's like a monthly workshop. I'll take it every once in a while just to like work on new material, blah, 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 blah. And so I've been working with him almost a year now. And he said something about my persona that I'm building. And it's very funny because it's like, I didn't sit down one day and was like, what kind of persona do I want to be? Like, it kind of like came to me, and it just like, based on like my material and stuff, it's kind of what is starting to develop into a persona. So it's not like, it's basically like me, but I guess like a component of me. You know what I mean? Like it's not, like you can tell when you go into that persona, but it's not so drastically different than who I am as a person.
Right, it's like showing people a specific like facet or
Yes.
And that's what I've found too, is that people who have been really successful, they're part of what they do really well, whether it's conscious or not, that they're just like authentic people. And because of that, it lends itself to kind of, again, even if it's unintentional, creating a brand for themselves. Cool.
I just feel like it's a more like ditzy version of myself. like I feel like that's how I come across, like bubbly, and like I am a bubbly person, but it's like taking that and like exaggerating it a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's also like there are certain parts of yourself that aren't necessarily appropriate for what we're trying to accomplish
Yeah.
during our set as comedians. One of the things I say on the Too Funny feedback mic a lot is like, sometimes I feel like the job of the comedian is like, for however long my set is, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it's like, while I am there, my job is we are going to be friends.
Yeah.
More so than, and part of that is just because I need to like take the obligation of myself to be like explicitly funny. But like if I can at least be interesting and at least kind of like engage and connect with people, that's
Yes.
maybe more of a for me a feasible goal than being like, you don't like my library joke, no. And
Yeah,
then
like you want
fighting
to
the
be
audience.
relatable. You
Yeah.
don't want, you don't want the audience to like turn on you. Like,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know.
yeah.
Well, some people
also
don't care, but
Yes, some people don't care.
some people are like, man, screw you. It's fine. Who needs you? You know.
Okay. Okay, so any specific tips other than the kind of multiple writing mediums that you'd like to share for your process?
Like, in my well, I mean, I think honestly, you kind of mentioned it earlier. I think it's just about being authentic. And I mean, we've touched on this, I think, in multiple facets, but like, you can't try and be like, oh, this comedian does jokes like this and they're really funny. Let me do that. Like, it's not going to work. You're not going to be funny. Like, that's not you. Like, you have to, it's fine. Like when you're first starting out, like I'm still like new and it's like in the beginning, you're testing different things, but, I do watch a lot of stand-up, but I wouldn't write while I was watching stand-up because I didn't want to just like mimic other people's styles. You know, like I wanted to find something that like worked for me, and I'm still working on finding something that works for me. You know, you're constantly developing. I had to teach myself early on, and I'm sure like you guys can relate as comedians and writers, like I had to not take criticism personally. And like that was a big hurdle to get over, but like once I got over it, I was like so happy I did, because like you kind of have to like not have an ego in comedy. And I think most people in comedy have egos, but it's like you kind of have to not have an ego, which I mean, we all have egos, but you kind of have to just like let it simmer, because if people are trying to genuinely help you, then you have to be open to it, you know, and you know the right people to ask, you know who you trust, whose opinions you can like rely on. And I would say just like trying to be authentic, but also trying to be egoless and like open to people telling you like, I think it's good, but here's how it can be better.
Yeah, I think that's also a big thing too, is like hopefully the criticism coming at you is actually constructive.
Yes. You have to be able to filter it out.
Well, like it's also a real challenge though, because like comedy is like specifically a medium, I feel, that is like so much of it is like being okay with like being vulnerable, and not necessarily like the best environment. Like you're being vulnerable, you're kind of like exposing your sense of humor, which again we've talked about like how it can be really tied into your specific background. And if people don't think that that's funny, even if like they don't mean to be like insulting or anything, it can hurt. So having kind of a little bit of objectivity about it, I think, is helpful. And also, I don't know if it's influenced at all, but since you also said you had a poetry background, I feel like this is a phrase that's more commonly used in that realm. But the whole like killing your darlings sentiment is also very true for comedy as well as poetry. I love this line, but adios.
And that's kind of like going back to what my UCB teacher told me. It's like, you don't kill the baby, you just put the baby to the side for now. And like I was like even like I ran a joke tonight in my class that during one of my one-on-one sessions we had canned. We were like, this is not there yet. And then all of a sudden this morning I thought, oh wait, I think I got the punch finally. I'm like, let me just try and work it, and it went great. So I'm like, oh look, the baby's back. Like I didn't kill it, you know? But like if I had like said, I'm deleting it, it's gone. Deleted it. So I think it is like you just kind of learn you got to look at the creative process, you know, like I used to, how do I want to word this? They really were like my little babies. And if like, I didn't want to hurt them, like if somebody said something about it, I was like, no, that's not nice. But now I'm like, tell me how to make this better. This isn't working. You know,
I want to
it's
raise
just,
my kid right.
yeah.
Well,
I'm
like
shipping them
constructive
off.
criticism is like a gift. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you have, but I mean, like you have to recognize that it's
Mhm.
constructive and listening to it's not gonna like ruin you. But like,
Yeah.
it's definitely if someone's taking the time to be like, that joke was really funny, but I think if you told it like this,
Mhm.
it'd be better. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's like kind of the same way because we've talked to a few comedians who say like they record every single set they do. So like they go to an open mic, they turn the recorder on, and they listen to every single set.
Yeah, I
And I
think
think
that was
like
Ralph Anthony who said that.
Yes,
I think it was Ralph.
That's
And
a lot
Winston.
of
I think
comics
Winston.
though. That's a lot. Like
Yeah.
most,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Yeah, and it's like if you have to be able to be constructive with yourself too, because like, you know, if I tell a joke that I think is hilarious and the audience doesn't laugh, that means I need to adjust my performance, I need to adjust my tone. Like that means that, but I think a lot of people might have the tendency if they're sort of early on and not used to accepting critique even from themselves, they'll just be like, this fucking audience is stupid, you know, like they'll just like write it off as the audience doesn't get me. And like as a performer, that does not work very well if your purpose is there to evoke laughter.
And you never blame the audience. It's almost like the customer is always right. It's like the audience is always, not that they're always right, but there's always there's always like something you can get out of it.
Yeah, like even if your humor isn't necessarily written geared towards them in mind, like it can be good for evaluating. Okay, well, if they're still not laughing for like just like it generally being like relatable in some way, maybe there's like something I can inspect about my humor. But also like as somebody who gives feedback, it's like that's also something I also try and remind the comics. It's like because I also feel like coming from a performing background, at least for myself, there's also like a little bit of a different not stigma, but maybe like a standard where it's like the no notes is good notes is something that's very like pertinent, but also the idea that like if I am giving you a lot of notes, that doesn't mean that you were bad either. That means that your comedy like got me really excited with like a lot of ideas for it and like kind of inspired me. So in a way that's like a good indicator too.
There was something similar feedback I've gotten is as I've been writing more and more and more, there were jokes that when I was doing them a couple months ago got huge laughs and stuff like that. And then like as I was writing new material, my other jokes weren't getting as, they were getting laughs but not as big. And my coach is like, that's because your new writing is better. It's actually a compliment. It's like a backhanded compliment because like, and I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. He's like, it's, you know, it's hard to understand, but it's like as your writing develops, you know, as your performing develops, some of your older stuff isn't going to be as funny anymore. You know?
And I also find, I don't know if you found this as well, but there's like a little bit of a trend that I have noticed in my writing where it's like, as soon as I personally become bored with a joke that I'm doing, that's when it's got to be cut from the set. I could say it exactly the same, word for word, same tone and everything. But like as soon as they see my dead eyes trying to tell that joke, you
gotta like spice it up. That's when you have to be like, all right, I gotta revise this. If I want to save it, I gotta try and do something.
Which is generally good because then it like makes room for your new stuff anyway. But also, obviously this is your interview, but I also rarely have the opportunity because my fiance is also like in the performing arts. He has like subbed in for me to like host this show before. And we actually met through the theater company that I mentioned. And like we've done some comedies together. So I'm curious, just since I know that like you are in a relationship with another person of the comedy variety.
Yes.
Is there anything that you have found to be a benefit to that, or maybe sometimes it can be hard when it's like all the artists in a relationship kind of thing, or any
All the
insight to
divas
that?
in one room.
Right, exactly.
I think I definitely think the pros outweigh the cons. I don't even know if there's really, I think the only con really is that he lives in Queens, obviously, and I'm in Jersey. So we're like an hour and a half away from one another. But I think that actually works out really well because we're both so busy that it's kind of like we don't see each other during the week anyway. So we can still be busy and it's not like we're blowing one another off. So it's like we'll have to balance and juggle shows around. Like there's times where we both have shows and we're hanging out, so like one of us will be like in the family room, one of us will be like locked in a bathroom. Like we just went away. We're both on an improv show called Winging It, and we both happened to get booked for the same show, and we were away. So I made him go in the bathroom to record. So I was in the hotel room. Like, you're gonna go in there, so there's no echo, sir. And
like, the call's coming from inside the house.
I'm also like, as a producer, thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Fucking hate that
Yeah,
echo.
because we've gotten booked on shows together before, and like we've done something similar. Especially if we're in my apartment, like my apartment's bigger than his, so like I'll send him, like he can go in my room and I'll like be in the family room, and it like works out. But so those are the difficulties. It's been great, honestly. Like it's like, without being cheesy, but it's like we kind of both get each other because we're both writers, we're both comedians, we're both got the drive, it's our passion. So if something comes up, we get it. You know what I mean? Like there's been times where we'll have plans and he'll be like, I just got booked on a show, and I'm like, take it, or like vice versa, because we understand the hustle. And I think that's really important. We'll do writing sessions together, and like we've been dating for about like 6 months now. So like he'll be like, what about this? And I'll be like, no. Like we're not afraid. Or like I'll be like, I think this is funny. He goes, that's stupid. But like it's like, because we also appreciate that we're different comics. Like I said before, he's a storyteller. Like I could never tell a story like he does. Whereas I am more of like the quick, and we're both trying to like help each other out with it. And it's funny you brought up Twitter earlier, because that's how we met.
Oh wow. Love
so
that
we
Twitter.
met on comedy Twitter, and then we started, like, we just so happened to be on a couple Zoom mics together, and like it kind of just like went from there.
That's so cool.
Yay the pandemic and yay comedy or something.
Yeah, yay pandemic.
Yay.
But no, I'm also gonna take a quick moment to completely call out and exploit my fiance. But one of the things that I love is that he has a very strong sense of humor, even though he doesn't do comedy necessarily. We're working on that. I really want him to do a set at some point. That's a separate topic for another time. But also putting it out into the universe in a recorded format so I can, again, put him on the spot.
Nudge. Yeah.
But like, I love that I have somebody that's definitely like that safe space, but also I know will give me honest feedback.
Yes.
How do you find that, Will, even with Travis Ross? Do you run bits by him?
Travis hasn't seen me perform that much, actually, because our improv troupe kind of, was winding down
in December 2019. So
when we started dating, I mean, he sees me do Mondo, which is like a movie night that I host.
Cool.
And he'll give me some feedback on that, but that's like less stand up and more like, I'm giving attention to this thing now, and now we're gonna give this info. It's like
character work a little bit, and like hosting, which is definitely a different skill.
Yeah, and apologizing to the audience for the horrible movies that we showed them. But I mean, I always appreciate it, like, because Tom and Chris have been together for a while, and it was always nice when Chris came to a show because I knew it was somebody who's like familiar with our style, like knew our strengths, knew like what we've done in the past, and would actually like give real feedback. Like, yeah, you guys were cut off tonight. I'm like, we just like, he's not being a dick. He's just being honest, you know?
Yeah, and that also brings up a good point. I was very fortunate, we'll say, that like out of all the people in the world, because I've been doing improv also like specifically with Roz for like over a decade now. So out of all the people I could have possibly chosen to be with, I picked the guy who doesn't like improv and has a silent laugh. Like when he thinks something is funny, he will be like, and I'm like, is something wrong? Did you want to speak up, sir? But yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad we got to talk about that a little bit. But I don't know if it's too soon to go into this question, but we can always talk about other stuff. But I always want to make sure that comedians, before they leave, I at least get a chance to ask them, kind of what's up next. And that sounds like a really like end of the interview question, but it's not, because I really want to hear like if there's stuff that you want to plug. Happy to hear that, and if you want to like save it for the end of the episode, that's good too. But I also like to remind people that we're interested too in like if there's an overarching goal, big picture, especially because right now in the displaced comedian / Zoom environment, there's people with so many backgrounds, and a lot of them like it kind of like baffles, I feel like sometimes other people in the community, that there are people who just do this as a hobby, have a healthy like work-life balance, and aren't always about the hustle kind of thing.
I wear a lot of hats. So it's like mom hat, teacher hat, comedy hat. No, and every time and I love my parents and I know they mean it well. My dad will always be like, it's such a good hobby. I'm like, it's not a hobby. It's not a hobby. It's a life. So like, I mean, I've got great goals for this year. I got a couple projects. Ralph and I are actually working on a project together. I've got some individual projects, ideas floating around. I keep working on, like, I would say right now I have a strong 10 minutes. I would like to have a strong 20 minutes by the end of the year, like, which I know for some people they might be like, that's easy. And some people might be like, oh my God, that's so tough. But like, I know how I would. So I would like, for me, what I would consider a strong 20 by December of 2021. And goal, resolution. Like, woo, yeah, like big goals. Like, I mean, I would love to, I would love to write for like SNL or some like a sketch show, or like have my own sketch show. I would love to perform, be able to pay the bills doing what I love, which is writing and performing. Like, I think that's a lot of our dreams, but I'm very much a big like universe person. Like, and I think that, like, not that I don't believe in working hard, because I work my ass off all the time, and I believe in the hustle. I'm like a big component on the hustle, but I also believe that the universe brings us the opportunities that are meant for us. So like, I like to keep an open mind as to like, I would love to write for SNL. Yes, I would love to perform worldwide comedy. Yes, I would love to, like write. I've always wanted to write a screenplay for a movie. Like, I would love to do all of these things. And but we'll just see what the world has in store for me.
Yeah. And like where your niche kind of attracts you within the industry.
Yes.
Because also that's the thing too, is that like comedy is like a big overarching like industry with so many like niches and sub industries within it.
There's so many scopes of projects, like who's to say you don't like raise money for like a little indie film or something and get it and that's your like movie,
or do your podcast.
Like, it's like, I just feel like there's so many opportunities I could like not even probably fathom that could come my way. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Like, I never could have dreamt this in a million years. So I like to just keep an open mind. I was always like the girl with the plan. And And then like when my whole life blew up, which it came out the other side so much more happier and, fine. But it taught me to not always have a plan or be like okay with the plan not working out. So now I don't really like, I have goals, but like I'm kind of open to see whatever comes my way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have any trauma you wanted to go into
Oh my
while you're on the
goodness.
show? Sorry,
Well, while I have
that's a
time.
joke, but also if you want to, why not?
Just
I
listen to
just
my
like how it
comedy.
sounds. I just like how it sounds like even though you're an only child, your dad seems to be like insisting on giving you the older brother experience.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like the thing about like calling comedy like a hobby. Like I was actually on a Zoom call with my boss, and she knows I host a movie night, but she doesn't really know I'm a comedian because I just don't tell people at work because I don't want them to come to my shit.
Very fun. Yeah, relate. Yeah, agree.
Yeah. And she was talking about like some college kid of her friends, like her friend's kid who's in college or something. She's like, yeah, he's doing a theater degree, but I think he's going into teaching, which is good because I don't think he should really go into something that doesn't require a lot of work, like being a comedian.
Twitch.
Okay.
No. My dad definitely is like I'll give you one example. Like I thank my dad because if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have the sense of humor I have. But like my dad's always just like, good thing your mom wanted to name you Emily because I wanted to name you Snarky Bitch. I'm like, oh, thanks so much. It's love.
But like, and like, I also get like the perspective where like, comedy is also like not necessarily what you would think of when thinking of like a stable field to go into.
Yeah.
Like I get that too, but also then we need to support the arts more.
Oh my gosh.
And pay our comedians and our performers and stuff like that. That's also like a piece of the puzzle too. I also like have people who like will come up to me and be like, oh my god, what you do, I could never do what you do. Like that's amazing. That like takes real skill, that takes real bravery. And I was like, then why did you sneak in and not pay a ticket?
Yeah.
So okay, good. That's good to hear. And also like, yeah, I also appreciate like hearing your background too, because again, I want to make it clear that while I have like the improv background with Roz, for stand-up specifically, like I went to like 3 open mics IRL like years before the pandemic even hit, and then like it kind of made me, because it's such a great platform for, and it lends itself to like so much independence, kind of got into stand up that way somewhat recently myself. It was great to hear in your background that like, oh look, someone who's like funny and like successful and making it is also kind of like coming from a little bit of a similar place. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I like being called successful.
I mean, you're on Laughing into the Void, which is like the most successful thing.
We have 22 episodes now.
I am so excited.
And
we interviewed a guy that was in the KFC movie.
I didn't know the KFC had a movie.
We did. That is.
We made a fake Lifetime movie, and Martin Morrow, who is a very hilarious and talented comic, has a part in it, and he came on this show. And I felt so bad because he has like, he worked with like Second City. He's got all these legit like.
I was like, why are you on our show?
He's really funny, and I was just like, you were in the KFC movie with Mario Lopez. And he was,
But yeah, no, that was very funny. But kind of on that note though, and again, that's why I'm like, that's like the last official question, but I still just love like shooting the shit afterwards anyway. So for like, now you've already gotten around the curb. Obviously, you have a Zoom background as far as like figuring out the technology, kind of acclimating yourself to the online community. Are you thinking about producing anything yourself at any point? Maybe like your own show or like a podcast like I joked about earlier or anything like that?
Well, are you even a real comedian
If you don't have a podcast? Yeah.
I definitely think that there is going to be, I definitely think producing a show is in my near future. As far like a stand-up show.
Yeah.
And I definitely have thrown the idea around in my head about starting a podcast. So yes, you might be seeing more of me or hearing more of me.
Yay!
Well, if we ever need guests for that podcast.
Yes, I will, be in touch.
We are desperate. Or at least I am. I want to be a guest too sometimes, It's great hosting the show. Sometimes I want to be asked the questions. No. I'm sorry.
Only if I can have the
really
65-year-old chain smoker on. That's the only guest.
That's the only one who's going to be on as a guest. Mike Wazowski. Anyway. But yeah, okay. So yeah. Remind me though, was there anything specific that you wanted to plug?
Well, no, I'm terrible. I mean,
Yay!
I always post any upcoming shows on my Instagram. That's
Okay.
probably the best place to find me, at Emily Paige Comedy. Nice and easy to remember. But
And for those of you on the podcast, that's Paige, Paige.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot this is,
Although, what a great name would that be for an English teacher?
Right.
Paige.
I know.
Like
yeah,
a book or a librarian. I don't know. Okay. So the Instagram, the main thing. Okay, then I'm gonna just remember that as we go into our little outro. But where's my little script? God, too many tabs. But that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you, Emily, for being such a great guest. That was a really fun conversation we got into. Thanks for hanging out with us. You can find her on Instagram at Emily Paige, Paige Comedy. Thank you, Roz, for being a great co-host as always, and a big thank you to you, our audience, both of you, for watching the program. If you enjoyed the stream, please consider making a donation or following us on social media. And don't forget about our fancy mic this Friday. Be sure to check that out. The links to all that stuff can be found in the episode description. And tune in next week as I'm really excited, but we're going to be interviewing Panda Mike founder and comedian Rachel Rothenberg. Woo, 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 woo. So be sure to check that out. That's going to be a good time. But again, that's all the time we have.